Last night, we know with Michigan, President Trump, I've said this before, once he got past New Hampshire, where you had a lot of people playing, and then you had that quick, the field got small real quick. You get past New Hampshire with a big win, which he did, and South Carolina with an overwhelming majority win, which he did. Then you want to start getting big wins, and so that the media, left-wing media, stops saying, 40%, 45% of the Republicans still don't like you. And that's not usually the case just because they necessarily chose someone else in a primary. But in Michigan last night, where Nikki Haley was able to spend some resources, but not as many as she did like in South Carolina, I've said from the beginning, you need to start seeing President Trump get to 70 to 75%. So on Super Tuesday, that's that key number, and that's about where he got last night. So if you get there, you're basically put it into this campaign by next Tuesday. And Logan, 15 states, when one U.S. territory, are voting on Super Tuesday. The early voting is done in some of these, not all of these states, but where we are, it is. And there's different ways they're all set up. I just want so people know, and what they can expect is realistic. So there's 874 delegates available on Super Tuesday, but about 2/3 are in states with open or semi-open primaries. Let's go through what that means. An open primary is Alabama, Arkansas, Tennessee, Texas, Vermont, Virginia, and Minnesota. That means you go to the primary or caucus and you decide. You can only pick one party, but you can decide that day which party you want to vote within for the presidential nominee and others running within like the Republican or Democrat parties. You don't have to be registered independent or registered with that party to ask for that party's ballot. In fact, you could be registered Democrat and ask for a Republican ballot. Yep. Just means you can only vote in that one. So that's 7, again, big states. I still expect in all of those President Trump to win big.
Yeah, at this point, I don't see how he does it. Maybe there's some voters that go in and decide to try to cause a little bit of disruption there, but I really don't see it, especially in states like Tennessee and some of these big states where President Trump has won sort of landslide victories in the past. I don't see that really changing much. You brought up those sort of open primaries. That's what we have here. We walk in and say out loud, which is always a little awkward, to be honest, of which ballot do we want, and then they put it on the chip and put it in the digital reader. So it's an odd time.
There's 2 semi-close primaries. And now for Republicans in a primary, these states are big. In the general election, they're much tougher states. It's California and Colorado. Remember, in Colorado is the case that stands right now. But remember, the judge said, and the Supreme Court said, President Trump will remain on the ballot and the votes will be counted until the Supreme Court says yes or no. I think the Supreme Court will say yes or no before Super Tuesday. It didn't happen today yet. It could happen tomorrow. It could even happen Monday. But I think if you're a Colorado Republican voter who voted early or is going to be voting on Tuesday, you can be confident that your vote is going to be counted if you vote for President Trump. And I think that will be made clear by the Supreme Court, I would hope, by then.
Yeah, there's a lot of these have local races, so make sure, even if you think like, oh, this is a shoe-in, I shouldn't even vote, a lot of them have local races with real impact.
Like that
Go in and vote.
If you want the Republican primary over with, like if you want Donald Trump to be the nominee, help his margin of victory. Yeah. Because if you think, well, he's going to win, and likely he will.
And if you want to make a statement the other way.
Yeah, that's true, too. If you want this race to continue, it's only going to happen.
Like the sheriffs running, stuff like that really does matter in your area. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Let's go to Ken, who's calling in Virginia on line 5. Ken, you're on the air.
Hey, Ken.
Good morning, guys. The thing that I would say is in the Constitution, the 8th Amendment protects this type of judgment coming from that judge in New York against someone that's in politics, and they're trying to ruin them financially because there's no fraud, there's no bank loan that was, not paid back. Sure. They've done everything they need to do, and all they need to use is the 8th Amendment to stop this judgment from the judge.
Well, that's the notice of appeal, Ken, has been filed. That could certainly then, in New York, you can file the notice of appeal. Then you have to post the bond. That's that almost $500 million it's come to now. Then you get to file the appeal. I would imagine in that appeal, if they think they could have success there, that issue could certainly be raised. And you'd also want to look at provisions that were similar to that in the New York State Constitution. State constitutions are able to take constitutional rights that we have, rights like against cruel and unusual punishments or excessive financial penalties, and they can actually expand those rights. They can't take away rights in the Constitution, but you can give more rights than the U.S. Constitution does in a state constitution. So I think if you're those attorneys, you're going to work on that appeal. You're going to look at the 8th Amendment, but you're also going to look at, is there anything similar in the New York State Constitution or laws that you could even make an easier argument for to cut down that penalty to something even more reasonable while you continue to litigate this case in this bizarre part of New York law that allows New York to bring a fraud charge even if there's no one alleging an outside harm. None of the parties that gave out the loans have alleged that there was any wrongdoing. But New York thinks the way that Trump got the loans, or the Trump organization got the loans, was fraudulent because of how they put what they were worth on it, even though they got the loans and they repaid them back. It's goofy, but yes, that could certainly be raised later on. You want to take another call, Logan?
Yeah, let's go to Wayne, who's calling in Texas on line 1. Wayne, welcome.
Hi, I was just kind of looking over the impeachment inquiry itself. Is focusing on actions that Biden did as a vice president. There were some issues about impeaching Trump post-presidency. So should an impeachment focus just on actions that someone does while in that office of presidency? Or is this a legitimate thing to go back and look at what he was doing prior to becoming president?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think you look at what they were doing previously, you have to connect it to what they're doing now, like what Hunter Biden is doing now. I mean, that's what these investigators have to do today, is they've lost some of the best potential evidence, and that is, it looks like that 1023 has been discredited, the $10 million bribery, Burisma bribery. And we always said from the beginning, including Republicans who wanted that made public, that, again, that was just something filed by an FBI informant with no one saying whether it was right or wrong. And now they did, and they looked into it, and they arrested the person who was their informant and have charged them with feeding improper information. Said they had no, in the past they've provided good information. This time they had no connection to Burisma. They had no way of knowing any of this. It was in the U.S. government's mind completely fabricated. So you've got to point to some other issues. So yeah, I think you can look at what they did as vice president, but you want to connect it to what is happening during the presidency. And Hunter Biden has continued to benefit economically. That's true. And we're going to get to see in the transcript today, do the Republicans unearth anything new, or tomorrow we'll get the transcript, or is it the same old information?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Tammy wanted to call in. I don't know if we have time to get to her. We only had 1 minute.
We can do it real quick.
Tammy, you're on the air very quickly. You got like 20 seconds.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I think the American people would be interested to know the reception that Biden gets from the people in Texas versus the reception that Trump is going to get.
Well, preview of tomorrow.
Well, here's the thing. They're going to different places. President Biden's is going to be very, very controlled. So he's not going to see a lot of normal people. He's going to see a lot of government agents. He's going to a place where there's not nearly as bad of an issue. I think he's going to a place there's only been like 12 people caught crossing the border, where President Trump's going to one where I think there's hundreds each day.
The closest they're going to get together the entire year.
It might. It might. It should be interesting. I would imagine President Trump's will be a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
To put it that way.